filtered alarm tabs. Here we will take a look on how to filter the tab pages that we added before, for instance, to only see critical alarms in there. Before we will do so, we will first take a look on how to do certain filtering on, for instance, an element or a view or a service very easily with just drag and drop without going into any configuration, which we will do immediately after that. So if you quickly want to filter on what happened on a device in the last hour or which alarms are currently active in a view, you can easily do so by dragging and dropping that specific item into your alarm console, and a new tab page is automatically being added and you can choose what you want to see there. If it's the active alarms or if it's history alarms that you want to fetch, information events or effective alarms, some more filtering possibilities might be possible. And on the very right hand side, you can effectively show those alarms. Let's take a look at that, because maybe I want to have a quick look to the alarms that are currently active in the DMA info element. You just drag and drop it in here. It adds a tab page with that name. It's by default on active alarms. I show the alarms and I see the alarms on the DMA info. If I want to see the alarms that are active in, for instance, a view like Belgium, if I just drag and drop Belgium on there, I say show the alarms, and it will show me all the alarms that are active across those different elements that are located in Belgium. So IRD 1 and 2 and 3, they are all combined in here. That's for active alarms. If I want to maybe look on what's happened, what has happened in the last 24 hours on my IRD 01, I can just simply drag and drop it in there. I'm not going to go for active alarms now, but I'm going to go for a last 24 hours, show the alarms, and it will go to the history database to show me everything that happened today in the last 24 hours. So that's very convenient, very easy to just drag and drop something in there, like an element, a service, a view. Those objects you can easily drop in there. But if you want to do a little bit more filtering, like for instance filtering on only the critical alarms, we will need to take it a step further. First, when I go into adding an additional tab page, we can go on various places to the apply filters. Let me show you. Let's close this one. If I click on the plus sign, I do have the apply filters that is conveniently available in those different sections about the current, the history, or the sliding window. Doesn't really matter which one you choose, you always end up in the same window, but because you can still change it here from active alarms to history alarms or to sliding window or back to active alarms. So you can still modify it over there. You can also specify a name for your tab page. It suggests something by default, but you can change it as well. The options are available depending on the type you choose. So active alarms is the current section. Maybe I want to include information events, or if I go for a history, I can say last hour or last day or last week, etc. Or of course a custom time range that I specify over there. Same thing for sliding window. There you can also specify your time range, last 2 hours for instance, and the option to keep the active alarms as we had it when clicking the plus sign. Those are the same options here. Let's go just for active alarms for now. So I want to add some active alarms. Yes, active alarms, no information events. And I want to do some filtering on that. So you can immediately combine that with a filter. How does that filtering work? Well, basically we saw that we have a whole bunch of columns on an alarm, basically properties on an alarm. You can choose any of those columns or properties and do some filtering on it. So you select an item in there by adding a filter, and you select, for instance, severity. And then you can make a match. You can say if it's equal to or not equal to, or match is a wildcard expression. Equal to and not equal to, that's kind of obvious. The wildcard expression, that is a simple question mark and star that is being supported. A question mark is exactly one single character. It must be one character, not 0, 1. And star, it means that 0, 1 or more characters. So if I say star backup star, it will include everything that has backup in the name. You can also go for a regular expression. You can Google on the regular expressions. You can go wild on all kinds of more complex wildcard things, you could say. But that's a little bit out of the scope of this session here. And of course, we can combine several of those things. If I say severity must be equal to critical, and I also want that the element name must include, for instance, or must be DMA info. So you can make a whole series of and or combinations by changing the and or which is at the front here. Let's play around with that a little bit. Let's say I want to I want all the critical alarms in my DataMiner system available here. So let me start from scratch again. So I clicked on the plus sign, and within the current, I went for apply filters. Then it's immediately on active alarms. That's what I'm interested in. Active alarms, yes. And I can start building my filter in here. Select a filter. And I can specify any of the columns that are available. And if I say any of the columns, that also includes those element properties, view properties, service properties, and alarm properties. So if I want to filter on an element property gold, silver, bronze, remember that one? The BERT class that I added before, you can see it in the surveyor here, silver, bronze. I can actually say like, oh, I'm only interested in the golds or the silvers, etc. I'm not going to do that. I was interested in one of the default properties, severity. So is severity equal to or not equal to? And then I can click to select criticals, values to be hidden, values to be shown. So I need to move that one to the right-hand side, and it will show all the criticals, or maybe you also want to add the majors in there. That's a possibility as well, that you do multiple ones. For now, I'll just go for the critical onlys. Is severity equal to critical? And then I can immediately show the alarms, or you can also do a count. There is a possibility to count the alarms so that you know how many alarms that will match your filter. Let's go for show, and I effectively have an alarm tab page that is showing me only the critical alarms in my DataMiner system. But suddenly I notice like, yeah, okay, but I was only interested in alarms that are including something in the name, for instance, like IRD. Well, I can further fine tune it. So let's go back to the filtering by clicking on the pencil icon there. So if I click on the pencil icon, I can further add more items in there. And let's go for instance, the element name, the and or. Now I can choose between and or, and I can also make more nested combinations. Also with and not and parentheses, I can do a lot of wild stuff in there. Let's keep it simple for now. So severity critical and element. Well, actually now I have some more options. Here I only had equal to or not equal to. Here I have the option equal to, not equal to, but also matches the wildcard expression I specified before, does not match a wildcard expression, or you can go for the regular expressions or does not match a regular expression. If you go for the equal to, you basically get a list with all the items in there, and I can go searching in there and I can search for individual items. But yeah, maybe tomorrow some more devices will be added in that list. So I don't really know what the number will be. So therefore, it might be interesting, instead of selecting individual devices like here, let me close that and go for a matches wildcard expression. And then I say something like star IRD star, because I know in the naming convention it will include that naming. Let's do it like that and show the alarms, and now only the critical alarms on my IRD equipment is included in here. But if you want to further fine-tune it, you can always go back and you can say like, oh, I want to add another filter item, and I want to also maybe filter on a specific view where only the items in Europe are being shown. Then you can add the Europe view, that's Europe here, and show again. And I only have one now because there's only one in Europe apparently. So let me maybe remove that last one again, so you can easily remove items again by using the close or cross at the right hand side. Then I removed an item again. Note, of course, you can further fine-tune your alarm filtering by playing around with the and not, the or combinations, etc. You can play around with those and get that a little bit in your fingers. Now, one other thing I want to mention is if you created such a filter, you do have the possibility to save that filter and then later on save that, recall a previous a filter that you've created before. If you click on the save filter, you will have this pop-up where you give it a more meaningful name for the other users or for yourself with a description in there. But you see that there is a type of filter you can specify. What is that type of filter? Well, we have this type of filter or this type level in various places. And what does it mean? Well, either it is a private item. The private means that it will only be visible and it will only be available for me, for my user. So it's a private thing for me. And I can, of course, edit that as well. The opposite is the protected, the public. The public is basically, it's open for everybody. Everybody can use it, can see it. They can all change it as well. So they all have edit rights as well. And the intermediate state, you could say, is the protected. The protected meaning that everybody can see it, but they can use it, but they cannot change it. I'm the author. I'm the one that manages the filter and creates it and further fine-tunes it. They can use it, no problem for that, but they cannot touch it. So for now, I will create a private filter which is only for my user, not to clutter the view of the other people. Why are those filters being saved? Well, filters are actually quite interesting in DataMiner and they can be used on various places. They are stored on the server so that I can reuse them. For instance, if I want to receive email notifications or text messages on my cell phone, I can use that same filter again. Or if I send off traps to another system, you can use those same filters again. Do note, of course, that if you want to use it for trap forwarding, only the ones that are public and protected are available. And that's why you always have to be careful when changing a protected or a public filter, because maybe some other people are using that same filter to send email notifications. And if you suddenly widen it up to all the alarms of your DataMiner system, that person might get a lot of emails. So keep that in mind when changing a filter that potentially other people are using. So if I'm happy with my filter, it's filtering on criticals, all the IRDs or everything that includes IRD in the naming, then I can hit save. I can give it or let's give it a more meaningful name, IRD criticals. I'll just keep it private for now, so you can choose that in here and save that. So now it's a saved filter. It's of course still doing the same job, but if I now close this tab page, later on, I want to reuse a saved filter. For instance, for fetching history, I can click on Apply Filters, and then I select from the filter. I don't need to constructed once more and going for severity and element and all the things. No, you will find at the list of the at the end of the standard properties an option saved filters. And there you have all the filters available that you've previously created or that other people created, like the shared ones that I have here. I'll go for my IRD criticals, show the alarms, and now it's basically going to the alarm database, the history, to fetch the alarms of the last hour and only show me the criticals that happened with the IRD in the name. And apparently none of them happened. And I could verify that by going to the last hour in here and showing only the criticals. You can see there are no criticals in the last hour, so that is correct filtering. So you can see the filtering is a very powerful something, and it is going beyond the alarm console of DataMiner Cube, also with email notifications, trap forwarding, things like that. We will be able to leverage those alarm filters because they are stored on the server. So in the final step, we basically took a look on how to create those filters, how to limit the number of alarms in there and only focus, for instance, on criticals or some a certain site. Don't forget about just dragging and dropping a certain item in your alarm console. That's a convenient way to quickly filter on an element, a service, or a view. And that allows you to very quickly also fetch the history of a certain element or view. But of course, if you want to do a little bit more, like filtering on the severity on a property, gold, silver, bronze, for instance, you will need to go into the alarm filters itself. But remember, you can save them so that you can easily reuse them later on. So that was my story on the alarm console. There was a lot of things we had to cover in here. So we went all the way from building or playing around with the UI to see within the UI, the blue bar at the bottom, which kind of options we had in there. We went into the alarm columns that we have there, or the alarm properties that we have there, with extending them. And then we also played around a little bit with the alarm features in the right-click menu of the alarms, together with the alarm management we had in there, like masking alarms, acknowledgement, etc. In the hamburger menu, we had a couple of interesting features that you can enable or disable, like the audible alarms or text-to-speech that we had in there. And then, of course, we at the end also were playing around with adding some tab pages, some custom tab pages, active or history alarms, and now in the final step, combining that with a filter that we can save on the system and even use in other places as well. I hope you enjoyed this session. See you in the next one.